Did you know that roughly 3.5 million tons of sardines are caught every year? That's a lot of little fishies. Despite a decline in sardine sales over the last 50 years, it's expected to grow to as much as $12.5 billion by 2032. And as far as rice,
I'm not a fan of plain white rice, but when I make this rice pilaf, it disappears. I've adapted the recipe for my mess kit, and I'm going to share that with you now for rice pilaf with sardines.
on this week's episode of Making a Mess with the Yankee Camper.
So the first thing you'll want to do is combine in a small Ziploc plastic bag 1/4 of a cup of white rice, 1 tablespoon of orzo. If you don't have orzo, that's okay. You can just take regular spaghetti pieces and break them into small bits. Works just as well. 2 tablespoons of celery flakes, 1 teaspoon of minced onion, 1/4 of a teaspoon of dried parsley, 1/2 teaspoon of chicken bouillon, this is granules, and a dash of black pepper. Combine all of those into a Loctite plastic bag. I marked it rice pilaf mix. And then you'll need 4 ounces of diced carrots and quality sardines. This is a little over 6.5 ounces of sardines. Those you'll add at the end of the recipe. Grab a paper bag, mark it rice pilaf with sardines. Put in your can of sardines, 4 ounces of carrots, and your rice pilaf mix. Seal that bag up, and you're ready for a very nice lunch or dinner out at your campsite.
Something's a little fishy. I mean, literally. I'm talking about sardines, which means little fish. Sardines are of the Clupeidae family, an oily fish like herring, but depending on their size, may be referred to as pilchard. In Maine, canned sardines were often young herring, which causes some confusion about what type of fish they actually are. Named in the 15th century for Sardinia, the Mediterranean island off the coast of Italy, because it said they were so abundant, there are no longer any major sardine operations off that island. However, they're still caught and eaten there. As a matter of fact, they're eaten in all parts of the world. High in omega-3 fatty acids, they help with brain function and can reduce inflammation, heart attacks, and stroke. They can also help regulate cholesterol, diabetes, memory loss, and may even help with some forms of cancer, insulin resistance, and depression. It's no wonder that these minuscule miracle workers have been consumed for thousands of years. Also, unlike larger fish, they don't accumulate much mercury, and they're abundant since we've overfished their predators, resulting in more sardines than were in the sea a century ago. The health benefits go way beyond just omega-3 fatty acids. These powerful little bites of seafood also pack calcium, vitamins including D, A, B6, B12, E, and K, plus minerals like iron, magnesium, zinc, and copper, in addition to a whole range more. So, are there any drawbacks? Well, sort of. Obviously, don't eat fish if you're allergic, and they may contain some mercury, so be aware. They're high in purines, which may affect people who have gout or are prone to kidney stones. If, however, you're reasonably healthy, eating sardines can help keep you that way. Would I consider sardines a superfood? I don't think so. But I do think of them as a super good food. Now you know. Speaking of super good food, let's start making the rice pilaf.
It's a little breezy, so apologies for the wind noise in the background. I'm going to make my rice pilaf for lunch. So I'm going to need my smaller pot and a spoon. I'll take out my ingredients, which are 4 ounces of diced carrots, a can of sardines, and my rice pilaf mix. Put this bag aside. Let's move the pot over here, because the first thing we're going to need to do is measure out a half a cup of liquid. It makes no sense for the liquid that the carrots are packed in to go to waste. So let's just open this up. That measures about a quarter of a cup. We're going to need a half a cup for our rice pilaf. So just add some water, bring that up to a half a cup. Pour that into your pot. I'm going to light the stove. I'll place that liquid onto the burner, cover that, and that should start to boil in about a minute or so. That liquid's come up to a nice rolling boil. I'm going to take my pot holder, remove this from the heat. I'm going to turn that down to low. I'm going to add in the carrots. I'm going to add in our rice pilaf mix. Give that a stir. Return that back to the heat and bring it up to a boil. That mixture has started to boil. I'm going to turn down the heat again to a very, very low temperature. Almost to off. Cover that rice and let that cook for 20 minutes. I'll see you when the rice is ready. In the meantime, why don't you stick around and watch this segment on history.
When a place is extremely crowded, we use the expression, "we were packed in like sardines," meaning there was no room to move. Have you ever wondered, how did the sardines get packed like that? As early as 1822, sardines were being canned or tinned in France. During the American Civil War in the 1860s, soldiers were exposed to a wider variety of foods because of canning. After the war, the American people began to expand their culinary experiences, and French sardines were part of that growth. Companies like Wolf and Riesing of New York would import these exotic delicacies to be served to the well-to-do. The Franco-Prussian War of 1870, however, diminished the supply, and the import tax increased the cost, making sales of the fish difficult. Julius Wolfe, recognizing that his product was susceptible to world affairs, looked for an American alternative, which he found in the Gulf of Maine. The young herring were thriving, so Wolfe set up the Eagle Preserved Fish Company in 1875 and sold 60,000 tins his first year. Initially hoping to keep his success a secret, it didn't take long before other food companies sought to make their fortune from the New England waters as well, and canneries began springing up all along the Maine coast and spreading south. The William Underwood Company of Boston, the makers of deviled ham, opened a canning facility in Jonesport around 1880, the first and largest in that area. And they kept being built, so that by the 1900s, around 90 plants, employing about 8,000 people, including women and children, were canning herring, smelts, crabs, and clams. but the largest product was sardines. The industry even rivaled Maine's primary seafood commodity, lobster. By 1950, 384 million tins of sardines were produced, with the towns of Eastport, Lubec, and Jonesport all packing the tiny fish into cans for a hungry nation. On the West Coast, in the early 1900s, competition arose, especially Cannery Row in Monterey, California, which was named the sardine capital of the world. By the 1970s, however, tastes had changed. With the expansion of home refrigerators and freezers, the need for canned fish declined. Frozen fish became more desirable thanks to technology developed in Gloucester, Massachusetts by Clarence Birdseye. But that's a story for another time. Another factor was that foreign fishing boats using send nets would gobble up huge amounts of the tiny fish without allowing the stock time to replenish. In 2010, the Stinson Sardine Company, owned by Bumblebee, was the last major sardine packaging canner to close. Smaller processors, such as Bar Harbor Foods, founded in 1910, have hung on, but their sardines come from the Baltic Sea. They were bought out by Sea-Watch International of Maryland in 2016 and moved operations to Delaware in December of 2024, although they continue to maintain a presence in Whiting, Maine. The only New England-based seafood company selling tinned fish that I found was Island Creek out of Duxbury, Massachusetts, and although some of their products are locally sourced, their sardines come from Portugal. Perhaps with healthier lifestyles on the rise and more awareness of sustainable fishing, maybe New England will see a comeback in local sardine sales, but that future may be a little fishy. Now you know. How about getting back to making lunch?
Now if that lid starts to pop a little bit, you've got too much heat underneath it and you'll probably scorch the rice. Turn the heat down. Just pop there. You can turn it down a little bit more. You don't want to turn it off, but you want to make sure that that rice is able to absorb all of the liquid without getting burned. It's been about 20 minutes. Let's take a look at the rice pilaf, see how it looks. I'm going to give it a stir. Still a little moist. Put the cover back on for another 2 minutes. In the meantime, let me open up my can of sardines. Now these are very juicy. I'm going to take my fork, dig these out. You'll want to be very careful about getting rid of the juice that's left from the sardines. If anything's going to attract bears, it will be this. Go ahead and turn off the rice. Here's my rice pilaf. I have rice pilaf with sardines. I'm going to eat my lunch and then I'll clean up my mess. If you enjoy videos like this, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe so that you get more videos like this, including this location, which is the Barnes Field Campground in the White Mountain National Forest. And I'd really appreciate it if you'd share it with your friends on social media. Thank you for watching.